Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Chris Winter, and in this video I'm going to do an in-depth comparison between two very popular cameras. Firstly, the Nikon D7200 and also the brand new Canon 80D. Now if you guys didn't know already, I'm actually giving away a brand new Canon 80D or a Sony a6300 to a subscriber, so make sure to hit that subscribe button to enter. And guys, also definitely make sure to check out my top 10 list of the best cameras for under $1,200. Now both of these cameras make it, but they don't come in at number one. So I'll put a link in the description box below if you want to check that out. But anyway, let's compare these two DSLRs. To start off with, let's take a look at the build quality and features of both of these cameras. Now from afar, there's not really a huge difference in terms of the size of the bodies of both of these cameras, but when you pick them up, there's a little bit of a difference. In your hand, the Nikon D7200 does feel a little bit larger. Now the Canon 80D is definitely not a small camera, especially compared to smaller cameras like the T6i, but it does feel slightly smaller compared to the Nikon. And that's not a bad thing for either of these cameras. They both feel very solid in the hand and are definitely quite a big step up from each brand's more entry-level cameras. They both weigh around the same, so the difference is pretty small. All of the buttons are quite similar and where you'd expect them, although I did find that we do have quite a few more buttons and options on the 80D up near the shutter button, which is something that I like. Both cameras also have a little bit of weather resistance, which is good to see and should be fine in anything other than pouring down rain. By the way guys, let me know in the comment section below if you could win either a D7200 or a Canon 80D, which one would it be and why? And I'll take a look at your comments. So let's now turn these cameras around and take a look at their LCD screens. And the first thing that you're going to notice is that the Canon 80D has a fully articulating screen, whereas the Nikon doesn't. And to me, that's a little bit of a pity. Now, a few years ago, I wouldn't really have cared whether or not a camera had an articulating screen, but since I've used them now, I really do enjoy them. Being able to have your camera up high or down low and still being able to compose your shot is a really nice thing. And if you do any video work, it's just great to be able to move it around. Now, if you've ever filmed yourself as well, like I'm doing right now, having that articulating screen is really nice and does make it a little bit easier to compose your shot. But to be fair to the Nikon, I've actually been incredibly impressed with the quality of its screen. Now, I can't really fault the 80D's screen, it's really nice and vibrant, but there's something about the D7200 screen which is just so clear. It's also a little bit bigger than the Canon 80D screen. Even in bright daylight, the D7200 screen was very easy to see, so good job on that one, Nikon. Now, both of these cameras have top LCD screens, which is also nice to see. Now, there's not a huge difference between the two screens on top, although I did find that the Canon 80D did manage to add a little bit more information, whereas Nikon did have slightly larger text. Oh, and if you want to see some sample images that I've taken with the Canon 80D compared to the D7200, I'll put a link in the description box below and you can check it out in your own time. Now, quickly I want to talk about the LCD screens again and mention something that I forgot to talk about before, and that's that the Canon 80D has a touchscreen. Now, this might seem like a bit of a gimmick to some, but having the ability to quickly access menus and change settings is great on the 80D. It's so much quicker than using the little trigger on the side here, especially if you need to jump all the way across to the other side of the settings. But to me, the real benefit of having the touchscreen is setting your focus, especially in video mode. Now, this was a feature on the previous version, the 70D, but on the 80D it's even more improved, and its dual pixel autofocus is also improved. It's really a feature I love and something I use so often. Now, we still don't have a touchscreen on the back of the Nikon D7200, but we do have it in other Nikon models, so it is something I'd like to see on the next version of this camera. Now, one area where I think Nikon is really thinking about its customers more than Canon is on the side here with its dual card slots. The D7200 comes standard with 2 card slots, which allows you to either back up your shots that you're taking or increase the storage on your camera. Now, I'm not sure if it will ever come to the Canon 80D, but I would like to see it in the next version of the camera. Oh guys, if you haven't seen it yet, definitely make sure to check out my top 10 list of the best cameras for under $1,200. I'll put a link in the description box below under this video. But anyway, let's get on with this review. So let's quickly talk about the menus on both of these cameras. Now, they both work wonderfully and they're incredibly easy to scroll through. I think that both Canon and Nikon have both got their menus done right and are ahead of the game in terms of ease of use, especially compared to other camera brands such as Sony. In my testing though, I did find that they're both quite similar, although I did find that the Nikon was slightly quicker to scroll through the menus. Now, both of these cameras are relatively new, so you'd expect them to come with Wi-Fi and NFC built in, and they both do. And that's great, especially in this day and age where getting your photos off your DSLR and onto your phone or your computer is so important. Overall, they both worked well with their respective apps, but yeah, they can be a little bit cumbersome to set up. So let's talk about using these cameras for video work, and for me, the winner here is the Canon 80D. Now, the D7200 definitely isn't a bad performer in video mode. In fact, I know quite a lot of people still shooting with it, but there are a few things about the Canon that I really do like. Firstly, we've got this articulating touchscreen. Being able to swivel your screen up and down and to the side is great, especially when you want to get your shot right. Rather than having to crouch down to see your screen on your tripod, you can simply flip it up and see it easily. Again, like I said before, if you want to film yourself like I'm doing right now, doing that on the D7200 is really quite difficult because you can't flip your screen out to see where you are, whereas on the Canon 80D, it's really a breeze. Now, autofocus in video is not even close. Although Nikon have done a better job improving their autofocus in video over the years, the Canon 80D still blows it out of the water. Its autofocus for me is the best out of any large sensor camera that's available these days and is incredibly reliable. Not only that, having the touchscreen really does make it so easy to do some really nice rack pulls and focus pulls in video mode. Now, both cameras come standard with mic jacks and importantly, headphone jacks now, which is great and allows you to really monitor your audio. Both cameras also are still lacking 4K, which is a little bit of a pity and to me, a bit behind the field, but it is good to see them now filming in 1080p 60 frames per second. You can also film time lapses on both cameras, which can be fantastic and also a lot of fun. But overall, if you are going to be serious about your video work, the D7200 is going to be good, but the Canon 80D is going to be great. So let's now talk about the burst mode of both of these cameras. Now, if you are going to be shooting sports, I'd probably lean towards the Canon 80D, although the Nikon D7200 isn't a slouch either. The 80D can shoot at around about 7 frames per second, whereas the D7200 can shoot at just one less at 6 frames per second. So just for reference sake, this is what 7 frames per second sounds like on the 80D. And this is what 6 frames per second sounds like on the D7200. Is 1 frame a big deal? Well, for me, it's not really. Unless you're going to be absolutely shooting very fast moving objects all the time, you're probably not going to notice a big difference. And in terms of real world autofocus performance, I actually found that the Nikon was ever so slightly quicker. The 80D though, for me, did track subjects slightly better and does have 45 cross-type autofocus points compared to just 15 on the D7200. So in theory, it should be slightly better. Now, I'll be doing more autofocus tests between both of these cameras soon, so stay tuned to the channel for that. Now, both cameras do have similar 24 megapixel sensors, which are both great and do give you some freedom to crop in post. The lack of an anti-aliasing filter on the D7200 though, did result in slightly sharper photos on most occasions. So I just quickly want to talk about the battery life of both of these cameras. I found that the Nikon is the winner here and does have incredibly good battery life. Now, Nikon claim that you can get over 1100 shots on one battery compared to just 960 on the 80D. In my testing, that's about right, but both cameras are still very good performers. So now let's talk about price and more importantly, value for money. Now, both of these cameras have a retail price of around about $1,200, although as it's been out a little bit longer, the D7200 can now be bought for around about $1,100 on Amazon. To me, both of these cameras are very good value for money and you're really getting a lot of pro level features and a nearly pro level build in a sub $1,200 body. So which one should you buy? Well, it's really going to come down to personal preference. Now, I know a lot of people either stick with Nikon or Canon and it can be hard to change, and I'm not going to try and change you. To me, if you already own a lot of Nikon lenses, I'd probably stay with the Nikon D7200. It's a fantastic camera and has very good performance. But if you do like the articulating touchscreen on the Canon 80D, or if you are going to be shooting any video, I'd probably be looking towards the Canon 80D. For me, it is a bit more of an all-round camera than the Nikon D7200, and you're probably going to be getting slightly more value for your money. But honestly, both of these cameras are fantastic, and I think you'll love either one of them. Now guys, definitely make sure to subscribe if you haven't done it yet to go into the draw to win a Canon 80D or a Sony a6300, and also definitely make sure to check out my top 10 list of the best cameras for under $1,200. I think you'd be quite surprised to see what comes in at number 1. I'll put a link in the description box below under this video. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.